go ahead and get started.
Alrighty. Alright. Alright, how many of you guys like to eat? You can just raise your hand.
I actually hate.
How many of you guys like paying to eat? Paying? Alright. How many of you guys like to cook? How many of you guys do it often? Both. Alright. Well, today I'm going to show all of you guys how to make a speedy and fulfilling meal in 12 minutes or under. So the first step we're going to do is get our pan heated on medium to low heat. We're going to take our oil here. This is olive oil because we're cooking at a low heat, so this is a low smoke point oil, and it tastes pretty good. We're just going to put enough in there to cover the bottom layer of the pan. Make sure that it's not too hot or we're going to start a fire.
Please.
Right here we have some boneless, skinless chicken thighs. It's a good cut of chicken for cooking for your first time because they have plenty of fat in them, so they're pretty good even if you overcook them or if you cook them right, because there's plenty of intramuscular fat inside of it. So we're just going to cut this open. For seasoning, you can use whatever seasoning you like. It all depends on preference. Today I'm just doing salt, pepper, and a couple other ones. You always are going to want to do salt and pepper on almost everything that you cook. This is just kosher salt right here. Take some of that. And then add whatever else you like depending on your spice level. I got pepper right here. We're going to throw on some Cajun two-step. Get right on. I'm also going to add in some cayenne pepper for a little bit of heat. And I'm also going to add on some turmeric for an earthy taste and a yellow tint to the color. And a touch of thyme leaves.
Right.
When we get all that on, you're gonna make sure that your pan is hot. Just put your hand over it. And you're going to take your chicken and you're gonna lay it down, seasoning side down, away from you. Don't be afraid to put your hands in there. It's not really that hot yet. And make sure you lay it down flat and rub all the oil up inside of it. Right now we're going to wash our hands because you want to be very careful with chicken due to a bunch of salmonella and all that. You got hot water and soap, obviously. Make sure to keep an eye on your chicken, making sure that nothing's burning and the heat level of it is just fine. And while that chicken is cooking, what I like to do is make sure they have some sort of vegetable to go with it or anything like that, so I have a little bit more nutrients besides just protein and carbs. Stir all of our seasonings over to the side. And also, since we're not going to make a mess, we're going to put a lid on top of this. It's going to help speed up the cooking process also, allowing the steam to come up to the top and cook the top of the chicken while the bottom of the chicken is cooking. So we're going to take our cutting board. My vegetable that I'm using is just a simple onion. We're going to take it and we're going to julienne it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut it in half, right like that, down the middle. Make sure all the skin is off. Sometimes it's hard to get the outer layer of onion off, so I usually just sacrifice the most outer layer of onion because we're trying to save time here. Throw it in the trash. And we're going to julienne this, so we're going to cut off the front of it where the extra skin is. And we're going to cut off the root end of it right here, making sure that everything is all the way off. And then we're just going to come right around the side right here to make nice little half moons. These are going to be good with the chicken and the rice because it's going to help hold some of the flavor and some of the juice that the chicken is going to release. Depending how much onion you want, you can do half an onion, or you can do a full onion, or you can do even less or more if you want to. For as long as I can remember, I have been cooking before I could even see the top of the stove, grabbing a stool, helping my mom and my grandma in the kitchen, and then eventually learning to do it on my own when I was able to see the top of the stove. I would definitely say that cooking is my #1 passion, right next to music and language, Spanish. We're gonna check on this chicken, making sure everything's good. It's a little bit high because the chicken's starting to release some of the water, so it's spraying everywhere because oil and water don't like each other, so we're gonna turn it down just a tad. Bring our chicken back over here. Make sure all these onions are separated so they can get the appropriate amount of cooking time. We're gonna get rid of all of our discards of the onion. Toss it in the trash right here. And since these have a lot of water in them, I think I'm gonna do another one because it's gonna shrink quite a bit when it cooks. So make sure these are all separated. Put them over here to the side. I'm gonna do probably not this entire onion, but just maybe like half of it as well. Remember, you are cooking, trying to get this done in under 12 minutes because you say you have like work or something like that. But don't go so fast that you're gonna hurt yourself. But go as fast as you can without hurting yourself. Special knife skills right here. Keep your knuckles like this. Keep your fingertips tucked back like that, and put your knuckles up against the wedge so you do not cut your fingers. Just go right through it like that. I'm not going to use that half. I'm not going to get it. This chicken is sounding like it might need flipped. I have some rubber tongs here because I'm using a non-stick pan, and if you use metal on a non-stick pan, it's going to scrape off the non-stick coating and defeat the purpose of a non-stick pan. Chicken is looking decently golden brown right now. We might have to flip it a few more times before it's finally finished. Put your lid back on it. And this does have turmeric in it, so be careful when cooking with it because it can stain clothes very easily. We're not going to need the rest of this chicken. I do have some other ingredients here for some garnish. I'm going to have some cilantro right here that I'm going to chop up and put on the top for a finish. And then I have some lemon that I'm going to put on while it's cooking and then a little bit after. This chicken's not all the way cooked through yet, but by the time I put these onions in and the onions are cooked all the way through, the chicken will be done as well. So I'm just going to add these in so they can cook and soften up and get rid of some of the bitterness. Make sure they're all broken up. Toss them in. It's all about preference. Not a lot of people like onions, but if you do, you can put however much you want. Not only are these onions going to taste good, but they're going to release some of their water vapors, and that's going to go inside the chicken and flavor that as well. The onions are going to flavor the chicken, and the chicken's going to flavor the onions. That looks about good. We'll grab our tongs and toss the onions around in the chicken. Make sure everything is coated. Push that chicken down so it gets a lot of surface area. And we'll put the lid back on. Done with the rest of these onions. Number one thing that you want to do when you're cooking is making sure that your station is clean so that you stay calm and your food ends up tasting pretty good and not like the stuff that's left over on the table. Keep everything wiped down at all times. Another option would be to have an apron on yourself too, so you don't stand a bunch of your clothes and ruin them. I have some white rice right here that I cooked last night. It's leftover day-old rice. I do that because it allows the rice to dry out, take some of the water out of there, and when we add it in here, it's going to take the juices from the chicken and replace the water in here with the rice. So the rice is going to taste more like chicken rather than just plain rice. This is just a basmati rice. It's a long grain rice. It's what you want to use for a dish like this, not a short grain rice like you would use in an Italian risotto. So we're going to check our chicken, make sure everything's looking good. With all the ingredients in here, the temperature's starting to go back lower, so I'm going to raise up the heat just a tad because we're going to get a lot more stuff going in the pan. Chicken is pretty close to done. Onions are looking good. You want to get them translucent, but you don't want to get them brown because we're not frying them, we're sweating them. And all the chicken and all the seasoning that was on the chicken is running off into the onions. And since we're cooking some of the acidity out of the onion, we're going to add some acidity back into the onion. So I have this lemon right here that we're just going to squeeze over the top. And while that's going, we're actually going to use this cutting board again because we're going to prep some of our cilantro. I really like cilantro. I think that adds a little bit more than just color to your plate. I think it adds some good texture and it adds some nice flavor as well. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our cilantro. The best way to do it is to just bunch it up as well as you can. Hold it down and use the same technique that we were using for chopping with onions. Make sure you only have your knuckles pushing up against the knife and just still add the cilantro. Now I'm going to add in some of this rice into the pan with the chicken and the onions. And since it was stored overnight, it's going to be kind of clumpy there, so you're going to make sure that you break it up. Make sure that everything is well coated. And normally, depending on what time your chicken is done cooking, you're going to want to rest it for at least 5 minutes. But in this situation, we may not have time to rest it, which is completely fine because all the juice that comes out of the chicken from that not resting is going to go right on top of the rice. We're going to need our plate because this chicken is pretty much done. For everything situated. I'm going to take just the chicken out right now because I'm going to make sure the rice and everything is well seasoned. Just lay it down here on the cutting board. Make sure that the onions are translucent and cooked all the way through because you're not going to want crunchy, better onions in your final product. Stir everything in together. There was no salt in this rice because when you cook rice with salt, it messes up the cooking time. So I'm going to add in a little bit of salt in now.
30 seconds.
Okay. And just make sure everything is well incorporated. So this rice is pretty much done. I'll lay it down here on the plate. Turn off our stove, do not forget that. Normally we'd let our chicken rest, but we don't have much time, so we're just going to slice it along here. Place it on top. And you're going to finish with some of your cilantro. And we're going to do a squeeze of lemon on top of the whole thing. And there is a meal, fulfilling and healthy in under 12 minutes.